Thank you very much for joining my session about the beauty of OData and how we can leverage this to bring the best UI of choice to your end users. I feel very honored to be able to present here in this SAP online track. I've attended several events in the past and recently obviously also some online events, so I'm really happy to contribute back to the community. My name is Holger Bruchelt, and I'm with Microsoft. I recently changed roles within Microsoft, so instead of being a cloud solution architect, I'm now in the product management architect role, working on SAP and Microsoft integration topics. Before joining Microsoft 3 years ago, I was at SAP over 12 years. And in my last role, I was there as a product manager for the SAP Cloud Platform. Very early on in my career, I was focusing on the SAP Enterprise Portal, then also quite much involved in the early Duet and Duet Enterprise days, which were all about bringing the relevant SAP data to end users in the very best way possible. Back then, it was all about Outlook, Excel integration, and some things have changed. Others, I would say, are still the same. So almost 2 years ago, I published a blog with the title The Beauty of OData, where I talked about the benefits of having a common standard for protocol that brought a common understanding of how to use RESTful services. Coming from a world where we used web services with complicated XML-based web service description languages and complicated bodies that you needed to post to your web service, even if you only wanted to read something from them. REST and OData were a huge simplification, I would say. So looking back at Duet, we didn't have all that. So at that time, SAP and Microsoft, we really had to spend a lot of time just to bridge the gaps of these two worlds. Now, one of the immediate benefits, for example, is the out-of-the-box integration of Microsoft Excel with SAP. This has become even better with the SAP Fiori and SAP's huge investment and adoption of OData. So yes, OData might not always be the best protocol for everything, but betting on a single standard across different products. So look also at the new SAP graph. That can really simplify your life. So I thought, why not take this beyond a simple Excel integration? What else could we integrate if we really just focus on OData and let's see what we can do, what we can integrate there. So I remember one slide that we showed during the Duet Enterprise days, and that was all about the day in the life of an information worker. The idea was that although I actually like the SAP GUI, keep in mind that at that time, the SAP GUI was more or less the only interface that was there. With Duet, we would bring SAP data to any application. Well, any Microsoft application to so to say, in an easy way. So we started at that time with a Windows mobile phone. Well, you probably wouldn't see this anymore now, but still, since this is in the slide, well, we started with a mobile experience. Then the user, the information worker would go to work. He would open up Outlook to interact probably with some SAP workflows or something like that. Then he might change to Excel, crunch some SAP data in Excel. Then maybe he would open up Skype at this time, or Lync even at this time, and start a chat conversation. He maybe would go on to CRM data and work in SharePoint and something like that. So this was basically this day in a life story back in the Duet days. All of this at that time really required a Duet server, for example, that helped with the single sign-on setup. This helped with the logging, with the whole authentication, with the whole integration, the transformation of the protocols and stuff like that. So in the meantime, a lot of things have actually changed. And what I want to show you in the next 30 minutes or so is how we can do this actually today. So I obviously want to start with SAP Fiori. I think what SAP has done, what SAP is doing there with SAP Fiori is really, really beautiful. And Fiori has evolved to a really beautiful user interface. And I know of many customers that are fully betting on this user experience story, that are clearly saying with SAP Fiori, I get this role-based, simplified experience that I can really roll out to my users. But still, there are situations where some of your workers would like to have data maybe also in other tools. Maybe they start with SAP Fiori, but then they want to work with data in Excel. Maybe they are working in Outlook anyways, so they want to have notifications and other information in Outlook, maybe in SharePoint, maybe in Teams. So there is a world beyond Fiori, and that's why I want to show you in the next demos. Keep in mind that you don't need to necessarily change something in the SAP backend system. Something that I personally find extremely important, especially if you go to customers and coding in the SAP backend systems or making changes in the SAP backend system can also always be a little complicated. With the use of OData and looking at all these SAP Fiori applications, there are a lot of scenarios where you don't even need to change anything in the backend, where you can just leverage existing OData services, and instead of, or in addition of showing the information in SAP Fiori user interface, you can also expose this data in other user interfaces. So most of the demos that I'll do are easily reproducible. So just give it a try. What I want to do is always I want to show you the end result, and then I quickly want to take a closer look behind the scenes, basically. So in most of my scenarios, I'm using the SAP ES5 gateway system, so this public available ES5 developer gateway system, which I really, really like because it really simplifies the way how you can interact with SAP data. In some scenarios, like for example in the very first one that I'm going to show, where I talk about single sign-on, which for me is always the foundation of any integration that we're talking about. But so for this very first demo, I'll actually have an SAP system, also this NetWeaver developer system, deployed on Azure in my specific case via the SAP Cloud Appliance Library. Another beautiful tool and offering, I would say, from SAP that allows you to spin up your very own SAP system in minutes. So obviously when you do configurations like single sign-on, where you potentially can mess up the whole systems for all of your users, having a dedicated system for you as a playground is extremely helpful. And that's why I so much like the SAP Cloud Appliance Library. So with this, I think, let's get started. So let me switch over to actually a private window here in the browser. So from now on, there are almost no slides anymore. So I hope that everything works out fine. I want to start with calling my SAP system. So you can see I'm calling the Fiori Launchpad deployed on my Cloud Appliance Library. And I do this, when I do this, you can see here's the URL, or you quickly saw the URL of the Fiori Launchpad, but I have configured the system so that it's redirecting to Azure Active Directory. So I just need to enter now my Azure Active Directory user. So this is my Outlook user or whatever. I click on next. So obviously I'm prompted for username and password. I could have a two-factor authentication, but now that I'm hopefully authenticated against the Azure Active Directory, everything is fine there. I'm redirected back to the SAP system, and hopefully in a second I should see the Fiori Launchpad here in my SAP system. So with this, we basically have the foundation of connecting your SAP system with the Microsoft world. Because from now on, when I call Outlook or when I call another SAP screen, I have already authenticated. And that obviously means that I don't need to enter my credentials again. So like said, this was done on the cloud or via the Cloud Appliance Library. Now let me actually switch back to the ES5 system. So this is the SAP ES5 SAP Developer Center system. And I guess you're familiar with this one. So as a good starting point, what I always like to do is take a look at the list of the products. So the Fiori user interface here provides me with an actually really nice list of products that are stored in my SAP system. You can see here, the list of services. Now, either you know this, or if you don't, then we can start the developer tool. So I'm using here Microsoft Edge, but obviously in Chrome or something like that, you have the F12 tool, which means if I do a refresh here, I can actually see what's happening behind the scenes. So we're calling here the HTML page and so on. And at some point in time, you'll see a $batch request. So the way how SAP Fiori works is that it groups a lot of these individual OData services in a so-called $batch request, which means here down here you can see the first $batch. Sorry, that was too fast. Here, for example, there's one of these $batch requests, which let me make this a little bigger here and also maybe zoom in. That talks about, well, here's the URL. So we can see it's calling the OData service. There we go. And it's calling this SEPM RA protman $batch service. Now, if I scroll down here, you can see the individual requests. So this is the payload. So there's this get call that retrieves the price classification, and there are a few others. The important thing is here is where I get the OData service if I don't know what the actual OData service is. Now I've prepared this URL as well. So if I just call this service, you can see here, this is one of the OData services that is used behind the scenes, which in my specific case now calls a list of products. So let's assume that I'm an end user and I'm perfectly fine or happy working here with this Fiori user interface, but maybe I want to crunch the data a little. Maybe I want to rearrange. Maybe I want to take a certain look at this information. And I don't want to do it here in Fiori, but I want to do it in Excel. So what I can do is I can just take this URL, because this is no data service. I can take this URL and I'll open up Excel. Now in Excel, I just can go to data and connect to a different data source. Then I go to connect from a different data source. I select here OData. So it's pre-built. This connectivity is pre-built because OData has a certain structure, a certain metadata definition to it, which Excel can read and then interpret. So if I now add here this URL to my OData feed on the SAP side, I click on OK. Then Excel connects to this OData feed, retrieves the relevant properties information, retrieves the list of products. So it will show me a short overview at first that talks about, here, these are the different columns here, product ID, type code, category, and so on. So I could rearrange here. I could hide some columns and stuff like that. I'll just leave it as it is. I click on load, and now I have the information from my SAP system, not available in Fiori, but also available in Excel. Now, obviously, this is not necessarily something really special, because you could have always dumped all the data from your SAP system in Excel. That has been there for ages. But the beautiful thing here is that I'm really connecting to the OData service, which means if I go back here to my Fiori screen, for example, so this is the Notebook Basic 19. That's the one that I want to focus on throughout this demo. So let me, hopefully it will show up. Yeah, perfect. So here it is. So what I want to do is, you can see this notebook obviously has some properties. It has some heights and whatever. It has some description and stuff like that. What I want to do is I want to change the price. Let's make it much cheaper, and from 1600 to 1250, and I just save it here in the Fiori user interface. So what obviously happens now is that the data is updated in the SAP backend system. Now the problem is, if I head back to my Excel sheet, obviously the price is here still 1650. And that's always the issue if I dump data to Excel. Now, since we didn't dump it, but since we connected this Excel sheet via OData to the SAP system, all I need to do is click on refresh. Now this sheet is connecting back to the OData service, and as you can see here, the price is updated to 1250. So really, without writing one single line of code, I was just able to click on refresh and get the latest information back from the SAP system. Now, you could argue that that's all nice, but it's really complicated for end users. How would they know the SAP system or the OData service and stuff like that? Well, they don't. And that's the beautiful thing. You could just save this as a template and put it on a OneDrive or a network share or somewhere else. And then users would open up this sheet. They would see a blank list. They would go in here, click on refresh. And now this Excel sheet would connect to the SAP system, would retrieve the latest information, and the end users could really work with this data here directly from Excel. Now, that's all nice, but this is a read-only scenario. If you want to write back data, then it gets a little more tricky. But still, we can leverage OData, we can leverage the extensibility of Outlook. And what I always like to show there. In the past, you needed to start now with Visual Studio, really install the development environment, stuff like that, to build complicated extensions to Excel. Now, this is actually much, much easier. So what we can do is I can go to Insert, and there's an add-in called Script Lab. So this is something that you can do. Just go to your Excel, or this is also available for Word and PowerPoint, and search for Script Lab. And Script Lab is an add-in in the Office product that allows you to develop code directly within your Office applications. So if you just click on Add, I've done this already, but I can just do it again. Then you should see here a new tab called Script Lab. And just to get started, just to get familiarized with the concept, with the ideas, what you can do is there are some templates or some samples that you can use, and they show you how you can interact from this right-hand side here. Actually, let me open up here. First of all, a very simple sample that is available. So on the right-hand side, which is basically really just TypeScript or JavaScript, HTML and CSS, with the left-hand side, so with your real Excel container. So if I just click on Run here, this is a very, very simple example that just selects or takes the cell that is currently selected and or highlighted, and then if you click a button here on the right-hand side, it will just change the color. So if I select the cell here, it's red. If I do this one is also red. So very, very simple. And as you can see here in a second, let me go back here. This is really fairly simple, the TypeScript code. So I can just say here, get selected range. So it takes the cell, and then the color should be maybe not red, but yellow or something like that. If I start this whole thing again, then obviously, as you can imagine, the next time if I select a cell here, it would not change to red, but it would change to yellow. So why I'm showing you this? Well, the thing is, since this is all TypeScript or JavaScript in the end, so you can select your language there. You might remember, obviously, that SAP Fiori is also JavaScript and HTML and CSS. So why not leverage some of the things that we're doing with Fiori also here in Excel? And that's something that I've done in this screen here. So I said, well, if I want to write data back to the SAP system, then this is not an out-of-the-box functionality that I have here with Excel, but it is something that you need to develop. So if I load here my write to SAP TypeScript example, then I basically have two functionalities. I have a load functionality, read from SAP, that I've implemented. I have this get SAP data function, which basically calls a specific service, which retrieves this specific cell here. So I hard coded it that it should look at what is the product that we're looking at, and then we're retrieving the description, the supply ID, and everything, and updating the information down here. So I'll show you that in a second. The other thing, obviously, is that I also have a write to SAP function, and this. Sorry, I don't. Here. Sorry, this is this one here. So here we are getting then the information that is in these fields. So I don't know, product ID is here in cell 21, for example, and so we're getting all this information. And then we are writing this information back to our ES5 system. So let's just quickly take a look. So I run this application here, via script lab in Excel. And maybe while this is loading, then we can just start by, I don't know, let's first load the product 1000. So I do a read from SAP, and hopefully in a second you will see that here the product ID and the description, everything changed. So that's all nice. But as mentioned, I really want to start with this HT1003. And you remember we reduced the price to 1250 or something like that. So hopefully we will see the price here reflected, 1250, perfect. But now I want to use Excel, so I will reduce it even further. Let's make it 1050. And I click on Write to SAP. So now we're calling the OData service. Actually, in my scenario, I'm doing this via a proxy that is running on Azure, but from there I'm calling then the ES5 OData service, and we are writing this information back to the SAP system, which obviously means now if I go back to Excel, let's look for our notebook basic 19. There it is. So here we would probably still see the 1215 exactly. So this is still the 1250. Yeah. So here we're still at the 1250, so that's nice. But if I do a refresh, so if I go to data and I click on refresh all, then obviously here the price should hopefully also be reflected. Yeah, we're on 1050 now, and obviously similar here. If I do a refresh here on this specific screen, since the single source of truth is my SAP system and we're just exposing the data via OData, this price should obviously also be adjusted and changed to 1050. Here you go. You already see the 1050 here in the screen. So now I was able to, first of all, very easily read the information in Excel, but equally easy, I have to say. I was also able to enable a write back scenario from Excel. And obviously this could be a list of hundreds of products, and I then use standard Excel functionalities that I don't know, that I just drag and drop the prices or something like that. So potentially this could be a really complicated scenario where I work with SAP data from my Excel sheet and I update the data in my SAP system. So now we've seen the data in Excel, we've seen it obviously in SAP Fiori, and the next thing that I want to take a close look at is interacting via chatbot. So remember in this day in a life slide, we talked about link or Skype integration, and obviously today, in today's world, it's about Teams integration. So what I've done here is I've developed a very simple chatbot that is integrated here in Teams, and if I do a hi, then I get some information back. Now, what I can also do is I can tell or ask the chatbot, well, show me the products that are currently in stock, and potentially I would get a list back of services like, yeah, these are products that are currently in stock. What I can also do is I can say, well, show me details of our notebook. And now what we're doing again is same procedure as always. We're calling the OData service. We're retrieving to the out to the SAP system, and we're getting information like, look, this is our product, this is the description, notebook 19, this is the product ID, this is the price that we have updated. So again, very, very quickly, if I go back to my Fiori screen, if I would change the price, let's reduce it even further. So instead of 1050, let's go to 950 maybe. Just to show you that this is the information really coming live from my SAP system. So if I change the price now to 950, then first of all, obviously it would be the same in Excel. But if I do the same here, show me details of product HT1003. Same, the OData call back to the SAP system, and now I have the price here of 950. In this so-called adaptive cart, and I'll take a look at this in a second, I can also then interact with this. So potentially now I could say, well, I want to order 50 with priority shipping, and I could add some notes, and then I would just click on order, and potentially a workflow could be kicked off that triggers this order scenario. So this is a very easy way of how to embed also SAP data into Teams. And doing this again is actually fairly simple. So there's a really beautiful GitHub project available that guides me through the steps of how to create a bot and embed this bot into Teams. So really just clone the project and get started. And then the only thing that I have done is actually, so this is some of the code that is part of this GitHub project. The only thing that I have done then, and I'm sure this looks very familiar now in the meantime, is I call our OData service, so the SAP ES5 system. I call this sample service. I paste the product set information, and then I retrieve the relevant information from SAP and have the data. So then the next step is just about visualizing the results, and for this, as mentioned, I'm using these adaptive cards. So this is one of the templates that I had created for adaptive cards. Actually, if you take a look at, there's a so-called adaptive cards playground that allows you to test how this user interface would look like. So these are some of these samples, and the beautiful thing there with these adaptive cards is that they are easily integrated in Teams. They're easily integrated in lots of different products, not only Microsoft, but also obviously a lot of other products. So here, for example, is the template that I had created. Obviously hard-coded information in this example, but you can really easily get started with this, and that's the same adaptive card, obviously in a generic manner, that I'm then also using here in my Teams integration. So with this, we've now been able to get the data from SAP Fiori in Excel, in Teams. One other next thing is if you really want to also bring the data into other applications, mobile application potentially, or also in a very easy way that the business users can do this. And at Microsoft, we have the concept called Power Apps, or a product called Power Apps. And with Power Apps, we basically have a low-code, no-code solution that allows you to create applications that you can easily distribute in your company. You can easily share them. There's still a fairly good level of control, so IT can manage what are the apps that are distributed in your company and stuff like that. But again, this is an easy way. Some would say if you know how to work with PowerPoint, then you can also use this application here. The interesting thing, and we'll take a look behind the scenes in a second, is that we have a separation of data connectivity, so where you really need to know about SAP, where you need to know about an OData service, and then building this user interface. And just to show you again, we'll focus on the price. So by now we are almost reduced the price. I can just do this also from this Power Apps and update the information in my SAP system. So again, if I just refresh this page here, then the price should also be adjusted accordingly here in SAP Fiori. So what I quickly want to show you is actually how to work with this Power Apps concept. And just wait till we get the price back here. So here we have the 850 now. So the way how we do this is there's a Power Apps creator, and you'll see in a second that this creation is really done in a PowerPoint-ish way, where you drag and drop boxes, where you drag and drop components into a screen, and you can just rearrange the buttons and stuff like that. So I have here this small application. If I go to edit, then you'll see a canvas and all the different elements that we have there. The interesting thing is that for a button, I can then add certain actions behind this. So that, for example, if I click a refresh button, that my Power Automate, which is basically the logic behind my screen, is called, which calls the SAP system, which retrieves from the OData service the relevant information, and then it just displays the information in my canvas. So basically allowing really the business user to focus on, well, what do I need? Well, I need some information from the SAP system. I probably need a refresh button or something like that, but then I need to have a tabular view of the data. So for example, in this scenario here, you can see here, this is the canvas with information coming from the SAP system. And then on the right hand side, you have components where you can actually update the information. So everything fairly simple. Now, if I take a closer look, for example, at this button here, then you'll see that I call a function, an update OData EPM function, where I paste the product where the product ID, the product text, the product description, the product price, and so on, back to the SAP system. So this is all done behind the scenes via this Power Automate stuff. And that's actually a concept that I really like. So on top of OData, we are using this Power Automate function, which would be executed by the IT department, or which would be created by a business user who has a better understanding of what OData even means. This user would connect to the SAP system, would prepare the data, and then would just give a data object back to the Power Apps user, who then creates this new application. So it's really fancy concept where you just call here, for example, get the product. So I put obviously the product ID. In order to update the information, I need to fetch the CSRF token, and then when I do the actual update, in my specific example, I just send the name, the description, and the price back to the SAP system. But it's a fairly nice concept that allows me to separate the business user who knows how to work with SAP, who knows how to has the requirement, this is how my UI should look like, and the more IT department or more SAP focused colleagues that know how to actually interact with the data. So I hope I was quickly able to show you how to get the data in Fiori, in Excel, in Teams, in this Power App. But actually, we were focusing very much on the Microsoft side, the Microsoft UI side. One next example is that we want to enrich the Fiori screens with data coming from the SAP system. And you might have seen this already before. But here I have a very simple Fiori application that returns, again, information from our SAP ES5 system. And in this screen, what we see is, for example, I have, I don't know, here, this specific purchase order. I have some fields from the SAP system. Now, when I authenticate, if I log on with a Microsoft user, and obviously this could have also been done in the background already, but here I just need to click on this user. So I'm also now authenticating with a Microsoft user. Then I still see information from SAP. So I still see the purchase orders from SAP. But what I also can see in a second, so if I click here on a certain purchase order, then for example, I can also now click on these links. And if I click on James Smith, well, then you don't see anything, but that's fine. But what we are doing here in the background is we're looking at all the emails. So we're calling the Microsoft Graph to look at all the emails from this user that is logged on here, so Adele. We're looking at all the emails that contain this word James Smith in this email. So what I'll do here very quickly, I'll send myself an email Obviously, someone else could also send this email to the user Adele with this keyword James Smith. So I'll just do it. So I'll send an email to myself and put in here James Smith, and then please check this out, just a small email. So I'll send this email to myself, and now the next time, so obviously it has to leave, exchange, there it is. Now the next time if I click on James Smith here in the Fiori application, you'll see two emails here, two entries here. And that's obviously true or very easily explainable, because one is in the sent folder, so the one that I just sent, and then the email that I actually received. But the beautiful thing now here for the end user is that I get data from SAP, and I also get data from the Microsoft universe. And obviously we connected to an email. This could be a document in OneDrive. This could be anything that is accessible from the Microsoft Graph. So also conversation in Teams and stuff like that. So now we're getting more solutions. We're getting more and more user interfaces. And obviously now the question comes, well, how can I get a better overview of this? Well, luckily SAP has the SAP Cloud Platform Portal Services, which really allows me to combine all the different applications that I might have in my company. So I use the Cloud Platform here, the portal services on the trial environment, to create a very, very simple portal page with a Launchpad. And this Launchpad now combines a lot of different applications that I've shown you. So there's the graph example that we just looked at. So where I see the purchase orders, the list of purchase orders here in the portal. Or we can take a look at the Power Apps that I showed you before. So what I really want to highlight is that with the help of the Fiori Launchpad, or in this specific case of the portal services, we can now provide the users, the end users, an access to all the different user interfaces options that they have. So depending on the situation that they're in, they might to work with the data in Excel, or they might to work in Teams, or in Power Apps, or in a purely Fiori integration. So we really have a way how to easily combine all these different services into one place. Now, before we close off, I quickly want to show you one last thing, because I really like what Harald Schubert from SAP has done here. So Harald is working in the whole BPM area, and there's obviously the SAP Cloud Platform workflow services. And I guess you're familiar with, I think DJ and Max, they have created also a lot of beautiful blogs and videos around this. What I can do here, I can just kick off a new workflow, and obviously this new workflow would show up in your SAP Fiori My Inbox. I mean, this is a really simple workflow. But what Harald has done is that once this workflow is triggered, once the SAP workflow is triggered, and it would show up in the My Inbox, that the same information is now also forwarded to my Outlook. And then you just saw the notification. If I click here on this email, then we see again an adaptive card. So very similar like the adaptive cards that I've shown you before in the Teams integration. And now I can, from within Outlook, I have all the information, like what kind of credit it is, the amount, and some comments. I can just approve the workflow directly here from Outlook. So another really nice integration of how to combine SAP data with Microsoft data. And if you're interested in this one, I can really only recommend check out Harald's blog here about the integration of SAP Cloud Platform workflow services with Microsoft Outlook. It's fairly straightforward, and it's really a powerful scenario from my point of view that shows how SAP and Microsoft can beautifully work together. With this, let me actually finish this off. So I hope some of these scenarios were inspiring, and some of these scenarios were something where I said, well, that's interesting. Maybe take a closer look. If you do have questions, well, either ask in the chat or obviously send me an email afterwards. We also have a YouTube channel, SAP on Azure, where we talk about lots of these integration scenarios. So with this, thank you very, very much for joining my session. I hope to see you in one of the next SAP online tracks or insider tracks. And with that, yeah, thank you very much for joining.